Hello and welcome back to A Little Bit Unglamorous After Dark. I'm your host, Erica Renee, and today we're coming at you with a late episode. Today is Monday, and it's about 10 p.m., so kind of a late one, but we're going to power through this. And first of all, check out my merch. So we're official. I went to the mall and I got my mom and I matching crew necks. It's our first official merch for the podcast and it turned out so good. I'm actually very proud. I made this logo myself and I blew it up and put it in the largest PNG image that there was, and it turned out pretty dang good. So I'm pretty happy with it. Too bad you can't really see it in the frame unless I scoot back. But second, I've graduated to friendship necklaces. So I really wanted to make a necklace. I have all this Taylor Swift beading stuff left, and I told a Swiftie that I met on Record Store Day. I'm still in touch with her. I told her I would mail her a bracelet because she gave me one back when I met her on Record Store Day. And I have all these leftover beads, so I decided I want to make necklaces. So this one says Salt Air, and I think it turned out pretty dang good if I do say so myself. It stretches, so I can put it over my head, and I have a couple that I'm going to try to layer. So we're making friendship necklaces now. Also, fancy glass. My mom made sure that I had a fancy glass with a straw. It's filled with water, but I think for this one I need something else. It's been a long day and it's after dark, so I freaking love these black cherry White Claws. The watermelon ones are the best. I got my mom hooked on them too. So as you can tell by the background, I am still at my parents' place this week. I decided to stay a little bit longer than initially because I feel like I'm on a vacation here. My mom feeds me and makes me coffee in the morning, and I never want to leave. So we're here. I just want to address the most important update of this podcast first because I can hardly wait. 1989 Taylor's version was announced on the last day of the US tour in LA, and I cannot believe it. I honestly did not think it was going to happen. If you listened to the last episode, I told you why I didn't think it was going to happen, why it logistically didn't make sense for her to announce it, although all the fan theories were very compelling, so compelling that it happened. So I've evolved into my final form of superfan Swiftie, and that entails not only buying merch, buying every single piece of merch, it also entails live streaming her tours, every single one. Even though it's the same show, it's like a game. Now, I'm not trying to guess what kind of outfit she wears or anything like that. I haven't gotten that intense, but I was streaming the last episode. I was streaming the last date of tour, the LA show, because I, like most of the world, wanted to find out if she was actually going to announce Taylor's version of 1989. So, spoiler alert, she did. If you didn't know, which you should know, where have you been, living under a rock? But so I looked up, there's plenty of accounts that stream the shows, which a lot of people go to multiple shows. So I guess it makes sense that they want to film. I personally tried to enjoy as much of my show as possible without my phone up the whole time, but I did take clips of my favorite songs, of course. But some people are dedicated to going to as many shows as possible, and they just dedicate their time to live streaming, which thank you for your service, because I got to watch the whole show on Twitch, and it was 3 people with their different live screens side by side And so I got to see 3 different views, and it was awesome. Honestly, it was the next best thing to being there. So the queen comes out, and it's kind of suspect because she has a brand new enchanted dress. And if you haven't gone to the concert, what are you doing? 1, but I'll explain to you what that is. So, aka my boyfriend. It is, Enchanted is like the show-stopping song, and she comes out in this big, giant cupcake ball gown, like gasping, gorgeous dress. And last show, she had a brand new blue dress. And blue has been deemed the color of 1989 by Miss Taylor herself, even though I believe some fans disagree with that. And then she comes out in a blue folklore dress, and then a blue 1989 outfit. Every single outfit she wore was blue. She was just screaming, I'm going to announce this. And then she did, and she revealed the new cover, and it was pretty cool because I guess she made a big deal over her first cover. She didn't want to smile in it because she, 1, I guess, didn't like the way her smile looked, and 2, didn't want people to think that it was a happy album. And in this cover, she is smiling, and it is just such an amazing metaphor, and I'm glad she went with that direction. But so I'm saving all my money for 1989 Taylor's version merch, and Reputation Taylor's version is next, and I've already accepted that I'm buying every single piece of Reputation merch. Now, Reputation's my top album. I did the whole Spotify top 5 thing. I'm a rep girly. I knew it through and through. That was the album I streamed and was obsessed with. But I wasn't into the merch or anything like that until Folklore hit, and then somewhere it was a slippery slope after that. But apparently Rep Era was the best merch era. I have a couple of items that I got aftermarket, and I have like a sweater with like zippers on the elbows and just cool details like that they don't really do anymore. So I'm really hoping that they can match that, because I know the merch has been a little lackluster with UMG being the new management company, so fingers crossed. We're going to segue into Anna Delvey. Last weekend, or the weekend before last, I finally watched Inventing Anna. I think it was the last person to watch the show, but then once I got into it, I couldn't stop, and she's on house arrest now. If you aren't familiar with Anna Delvey, she gained notoriety because she moved to Manhattan and basically pretended to be a socialite. She pretended to have oodles of money and be a trust fund baby, but her money was overseas, and she managed to swindle so much money and secure loans to start this dream foundation she had. She wanted like a socialite elite club, and she almost did it without actually having any money, and made all of these people believe that she was in the club, and she was, because she was rich, which I find hilarious. Anyway, she did end up going to jail for basically lying and swindling people out of money, big corporations out of money. So she is now on house arrest in Manhattan. She was released from Rikers Island, and she has a podcast now, which I find really funny. I had to check it out. She basically interviews people who are up and coming about how they basically achieved their version of success. And it's funny because the episodes that I've watched, they're basically interviewing her back, and they want to know about her life. So I found out so much more about her just by listening to her podcast. However, I think it's really notable that she committed all of these crimes in Manhattan. She chose to stay and live in Manhattan after the fact. Now, of course, she doesn't talk to any of the people she once did, which makes a lot of sense to me. But can we just talk about her friend, Rachel, who basically lured her to the cops and tricked her into being arrested? Yikes. Basically, according to the show, the story went, they were in a foreign country, staying at the most luxurious places, and Anna's cards started to decline. So her friend put down her personal card, and I believe her work card too, and eventually got charged $60,000 to it, and Anna never paid her back, and she decided to take matters into her own hands and basically told Anna she was going to go visit her and let's meet up for lunch, let bygones be bygones, let's discuss it on the phone with her. But Rachel was not there, and she caught some handcuffs, and that's how she was detained. Ironically, because of all this, she's now pretty much a celebrity and sold her rights to her story to Netflix and made quite a bit of money. I think a lot of that went to paying off her settlement for people she owed, but she still came out in the positive after that, and immediately from leaving jail, she had the best glow up ever. And I just find it so mind-blowing how people can make money from prison. Anyway, it was a decent show, so I had to mention that briefly, but we're going to loop back to Taylor Swift because this is the topic of this week's What Grinds My Gears, and I thought of a good one. I was at my show and I stood in line for merch. As we know, the line wasn't as chaotic as you might think it would have been, but I still stood in line for an hour and a half, got to the front. I was so lucky everything was in stock, and in that moment, I chose the wrong thing to do by telling myself to have some self-control. So now we know. Won't do that in the future. However, I majorly regretted not getting the quarter zip that's exclusive to this dang show. It's nothing really that special, but honestly, I tried to find quarter zips that I could even screen print my own, and they were really hard to find. So I ended up purchasing one off Poshmark. Granted, I got a pretty, I don't want to call it a good deal because it's still way overpriced, 3 times as much as I would have paid, but it wasn't $250, which is absolutely obscene. Which brings me to my topic. What really grinds my gears is fans who specifically go to the show and buy up tons of merch to purposely upcharge to other fans. And I mentioned this in my last show. If you are a fan doing this, you're not actually a fan. Actually was on Reddit the other day, and it was really wholesome to see somebody post that they had a copy of the Folklore Long Pond Studios album, and this was like a well sought after album on Record Store Day that is not in production anymore. It's all sold out. Someone said they had an extra copy and they were willing to sell it to a fan for at cost, which is amazing. I also saw a few of them in stock in New York, I think Poughkeepsie. So if you live around there and you want to drop by the store, it's pickup only. If you want to pick one up and ship it to me in California, please let me know. Anyway, so somebody accepted my lowball offer of $150 for this damn sweater, and I am never going to take it off along with this sweater and the blue crew neck. I'm going to have to find a way to wear them all at the same time. So I love to peruse Reddit, mostly for Taylor Swift stuff. I want to see what people are talking about, what fan theories people have, what kind of merch people are getting. So I created a thread that said, what merch do you regret not buying? And I got like 200 responses in the comments, and it kind of blew up. I think 10,000 people saw it, which was pretty cool. So people could understand where I was coming from. So I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I don't know how, but I managed to bruise my foot, and I think it was from wearing the cowboy boots to the concert. But it's kind of weird because I thought to myself, why is one of my feet bruised? One of them can't be that much bigger than the other. And I remembered the TikToks I was filming, and I was throwing the boot up in the air. It was like one of those transitions where you throw the boot and then you splice the clip and the shoes are on your feet. So I did that about 25 times, maybe more, and I didn't take into consideration that the people below me in the hotel probably didn't want to hear my shoes crashing onto the floor a million times. So sorry. I think that was the least of all of our worries after hearing the protesters scream all day and night. However, one of those times, the shoe decided to crash onto my foot. hence the bruise. And it was actually black and blue for a while, finally healing. So my boyfriend told me a funny story this week about the dogs, and to this day I am still laughing. I find it so hilarious. So we have 2 huskies, Jenna and Vixen, the cutest little naughty angels in the world who we love. And Jenna, her sweet soul, my angel baby princess, she has to be on some little doggy medication, some little antibiotics. And what's really funny is she has to take it, I believe, once a day, maybe twice a day. And Vixen thinks that he's feeding her treats and not giving any to her. And I told him, babe, you gotta at least pretend to, you gotta at least give her something else and pretend it's a treat, so that way she's not jealous. So sure enough, he goes to work, and Vixen gets up on the counter and eats the rest of her medication. And it was very few doses left, like maybe 2 pills, and she threw it up. I just thought it was so funny, because that's totally in her nature. She could not survive thinking that Jenna was getting a treat and she was not. How dare you, Dad? How dare you? So I thought that was definitely karma for her, and she brought it all onto herself. So a little while ago, we discovered a little lump on her chest, and we were finally able to get it checked out, which is why she had to be on the medication, because she was scratching at it, got a little infected. But we are hoping that it's not going to be cancerous. So we're hoping for best case scenario. We're just going to get it removed, and she's going to be a cute, adorable little cone head for a little while, and then she's going to live forever. So say a little prayer for my angel baby princess, Jenna. We love her. She is the cutest, happiest little soul that you have ever met. So looping into the TikTok algorithm very strategically brought me back to BAMA Rush week. And if you weren't aware, I mean, maybe it was like, I feel like it was about 2 years ago now that Alabama Rush became huge on TikTok, and people were just enthralled by this very peppy girl talking about what she was wearing for that day of Rush, and it just surged back all of these memories for me, some of them not great ones. At that age, I thought, and the majority of girls who want to go through Rush think, that it is the most important thing. It is the defining factor. And the most important thing to me was getting the house that I wanted. I did zero prep work, had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't realize that you had to wear the most expensive designer outfits to every single day and talk about how rich you were. And I remember getting dropped from the house that I really liked at the time on the very last day and going back to my dorm crying, and I was so sad. So it just brings back a lot of Rush PTSD. And these were the days before YouTube taught us how to do makeup. These were the days that Hollister was the thing to wear. People wore those little lace camisole tops underneath the Hollister shirts with flip-flops and big chunky accessories. So anyway, I am obsessed with BAMA Rush, and I'm officially the mom from Mean Girls because I follow these girls and I immediately want to buy what they're wearing. And so BAMA Rush makes me feel poor. Not even poor back then, poor right now. Poor in this day and age. And basically, I want to be reincarnated as a BAMA sorority girl because they look like they're having fun, and I want to be that old money, rich girl aesthetic with my David Yurman bracelets and my Golden Goose sneakers and my Dior perfume and my designer clothes. One of the girls was wearing... Actually, I don't know if this company must have sent a bunch of skirts to all these girls because they all were talking about these gold hinge tennis skirts, and they're so cute. They were these little pleated tennis skirts with shorts underneath, and I immediately bought one. I actually bought 2 because they had a TikTok code that it's basically buy one, get one free. So, that was targeted ads, and it totally worked on me. So my tennis skirts get here this week. So people are mad at MAC Cosmetics. They used to have this program where you could return your used products. So after you hit pan, you could recycle the little components, and they called it their Back to MAC program. And this was in the era of people loved depotting their eyeshadow, so they would take the little eyeshadow pan out of the actual component and put it in a, what's the word I'm looking for? A palette. And so I would do that all the time. I would depot all of my stuff and then go, and they would give you a free lipstick, and that was their incentive for recycling. So they took that away during COVID because everything got more and more expensive during COVID. And recently they announced that Back to MAC program was coming back, except without the free lipstick incentive. And let me tell you, I had to go to their Instagram and read through the comments just for fun. Everyone was not very happy with MAC. Comments said, no free lipstick, no free recycling for you, no lipstick, no tax write-off for you. Someone said, my used makeup products are going in the trash now, in the landfill. I'd rather do that than recycle and not get my free lipstick. Okay, we're reeling it back in, and we're going to get into some pop culture. So this week's hot topic is Lizzo. Everyone hates Lizzo right now, and it is for the strangest reason. Not the strangest reason, but the most surprising reason that you would not think. So 3 of her former dancers are filing a lawsuit against her for hostile work environment and sexual harassment. And as of August 9th, 6 more people on top of that came forward as well to back that story up. So allegedly, according to this internet article that I read, which is always fact, as you know, she pressured dancers into unwanted sexual situations, made statements that were perceived as thinly veiled comments about a dancer's weight gain. So she was bullying dancers for gaining weight, allegedly, even though her whole platform is body positivity. And Lizzo herself is also a larger woman. And additionally, dancers were also pressured to participate in group Christian prayer, regardless of their religion, which is a no-no. And they went along with this because they felt that their jobs were at jeopardy if they didn't go along with it, like what happens to most people that are put into a corner like that in their work situation. So that's a major yikes. She has allegedly been dropped from Super Bowl halftime consideration. I didn't know she was even in the running for that, but no more. And of course, she has come out and said that there is no standing behind these allegations. However, sometimes I feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. And there are a lot of people coming out against her. Another celebrity that the internet hates right now is Ariana Grande, and I discussed this in my previous podcast. And I saw another article headline with her name in it this last week, and it said, Disneyland employees come out saying Ariana Grande has terrible behavior. And I didn't read into the article really, but it reminded me of Donut Gate in 2015. Does anybody remember that? If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically this was the era of Pete Davidson, and they were engaged back then. And they were in a donut shop, what I would consider to be goofing around. But she took it further and basically pretended to lick one of the donuts. There was fresh donuts just sitting on top of the shelf waiting to be put away. And she was pretending to lick the donuts, which is very odd. And then after doing so, proceeded to say, I hate America. and they stormed out of the donut place. And all of this, of course, is on video. It did not look very good on her behalf. She later came out and said, the reason why I said that is because I hate how gluttonous America is and blah, blah, blah. Like, girl, why are you in a donut shop then? Just very bizarre. So the internet was not very happy with her because of that. So after all these allegations and the whole cheating scandal, she's chosen to stay silent. She has not said anything regarding it, which honestly is a good PR move, because as we learned from Michaela from TikTok, I'm going to loop into another story. Michaela is a TikTok influencer, a beauty influencer, and she was recently canceled by the internet as well for basically promoting this mascara product from L'Oreal. And she made this little TikTok. She's like, wow, this is so amazing. They look like falsies. Puts the mascara on and then cuts the clip, comes back pretending it's the same, wearing falsies. So she was wearing fake eyelashes, pretending that she got all of this volume and drama from this product that she was promoting. By the way, L'Oreal was paying her a lot of money to do this, and her fans quickly called her out for lying to them, and she chose to deal with it by absolutely going silent, didn't address it, came back to TikTok like a week later, basically alluding to the fact that she was going to address it. And she started her video by saying, I'm just going to address the white elephant in the room right now, and then proceeds to go straight into another sponsored video and just starts talking about makeup. She just completely skated over it, pretending like that shit didn't happen, and kept it moving. And honestly, the internet really moves on very quickly these days. So I feel like, as terrible as that is, not taking any accountability, any responsibility, really, it worked in her favor, because everyone forgave her. They just forgot it happened and everybody moved on. And that seems to be the approach that Ariana Grande is taking. She hasn't said anything, and she broke her social media silence by choosing to promote her new perfume, Maud Blush, Maud Rose, something like that. So it doesn't seem like she's going to come out and say anything at all, and she's just going to let it blow over. I did see a headline that said Ulta was considering dropping her beauty brand, Rem Beauty, but I don't really see that happening. I was just in Ulta the other day and I saw her perfumes and I saw her beauty brand. I haven't heard anything further on that, but I want to loop back and talk a little bit more about YouTube beauty influencers. And there was one beauty influencer that hailed over the rest. She basically created beauty influencing, and she is amazing at what she does. Created this phenomenal brand, a millionaire now, runs many companies, and I'm talking about Jaclyn Hill. And I personally loved her. I binge watched her videos. She still makes videos from time to time, but people are very upset with her because her lifestyle has since gotten more extravagant. She's always liked nice things, and now she makes tons of money. And what happens when that happens to anybody? People accuse you of changing. So Jaclyn was under fire not too long ago, maybe like 9 months ago, because she decided to start an additional brand from, I believe, the two others she had at the time. So she has her makeup brand, Jaclyn Hill Cosmetics, and then she came out with a jewelry brand and named it Jaclyn Roxanne. And then she decided she wanted to have a third brand, expanding to cozy apparel, and she wanted to call it Cozy, Koze. And she was gonna have basically like bathrobes and just luxurious comfort clothing and blankets and things like that under this brand. However, there is another widely known YouTuber, a Canadian YouTuber that is much smaller than Jaclyn, who had a brand called All Things Koze, Koze, spelled the same way. And she had been building this brand for, I believe, the last 7 years. So this creator, her name is Kaylin Nicholson. She built this brand, and personally, I watched her videos. I thought they were so aesthetically pleasing. She always put them together so well. I believe the stuff she sold consisted of merch for her brand, and things like coffee cups and mugs and little things like that. So it was much smaller scale, but nevertheless, it was an established brand that if you were on the internet and in the YouTube community, you knew about. And if you were doing research to create a brand in that market, you would have come across, definitely. So Jaclyn was accused of stealing her brand. And when she was confronted with this information, she did not say a thing, nothing at all. If you went to her brand's page, all of the comments under the Instagram announcing it were all tagging Kaylin, all saying that she was terrible for stealing her brand. There's no way she didn't know about this, and she still decided to not say a thing. Apparently the fine line was, since this YouTuber was Canadian, she failed to get copyrights in America, which, if you don't know anything about copywriting, and I know very thin to none as well, but what I know is what I researched for this story is it costs a lot of money, as you would imagine, money that this Canadian YouTuber did not have. So she did not pursue copyrights in America. She lives in another country. So legally, this name was free. Ethically, I would say it was not right of Jaclyn to do at all, and she definitely knew about it. So she didn't come out until recently making a statement basically saying that she had no idea about this other creator's brand until everything was ordered and everything was ready to launch, which I find that hard to believe, but at the same time, I feel like she still could have remedied things or reached out to her or done something. So it turns into a whole he said, she said. Jaclyn says that her team reached out to Kaylin. Kaylin said that never happened. It's kind of like one of those Taylor Swift Kanye stories. Who do you believe? Usually the Taylor Swift, as we have come to know. Speaking of Queen Tay, she actually had a similar issue to this with her folklore cardigans. Apparently there was a black creator with a brand called The Folklore, and when she first released her cardigan, she had a little patch on it that said The Folklore Album. Similar design, coincidentally, to this other creator's brand. And the creator reached out to Taylor's team, and Taylor decided to redesign the logo, and she took that off, and she took it out of production. The new cardigan just say Taylor Swift on the bottom, which I understand. It's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. Taylor Swift is this huge money, like made of money brand, you know. Jaclyn's quite a bit smaller than her, and then quite a bit smaller than that is Kaylin. However, I still think there could have been something done to remedy. Another, again, large example was when Kim Kardashian came out with her brand Skims. Before it was named Skims, she decided she wanted to name it Kimono, which is like a play off her name as well. And the Asian community took a lot of offense to that. A kimono is a very traditional dress for them. So once she was getting a lot of backlash on this, she had already ordered all the product as well. I remember she ended up basically getting labels to iron over the old labels, and she renamed the brand. So something like that, while it does come at a cost to fix, something as simple as getting a tiny label and adding them to your existing product is still something that could have been possible for Jaclyn's brand, because she is a very prominent brand. She makes a lot of money, and I feel like that is something she could have done versus essentially stealing this girl's name. The girl was forced to rebrand because she basically got crushed by Jaclyn, this larger creator. So So that's a lot of drama, right? It gets worse. So Jaclyn comes out with a video this last week basically saying that she never wanted to be this large brand owner, and she strayed so far away from her passion, which was makeup, and she is closing her cozy brand and her jewelry brand and solely focusing on makeup. Now, she's had both of these, I don't want to say side businesses because they're quite large businesses, but these other two businesses for less than 9 months, completely crushed this creator, forced her to rebrand everything, this brand that she loved for the last 7 years, building from the ground up, and then she tossed it aside like it meant nothing to her. Another large creator on Instagram who turned into a brand owner, whose name is Marlena Stell. She owned Makeup Geek, and Makeup Geek was like the hot brand in 2015. Every YouTuber was talking about them. It was affordable products that were elevated, not quite drugstore, but they had great prices, and you could only get it online at the time. And I personally own Makeup Geek. I still do to this day, and I think that they were a great brand. So Jaclyn Hill at the time was Makeup Geek's ambassador, basically. She pushed their product and helped them sort of get on the map. And so what made sense was for them to eventually collaborate, which is what a lot of YouTubers do to basically make money before they want to start their own brand. And once you have an audience, you want to push them product and make some money, right? So Jaclyn and Makeup Geek were supposed to come out with this makeup palette, and it was supposed to be shades that were curated all by her, and Marlena ordered all this stock of shades that she approved, and the stock was just sitting in the warehouse because Jaclyn wouldn't approve the final palette. Or I think how the story went was she was tied into some other contracts and couldn't release anything else, and some things kind of intertwined. So they were trying to figure out the best time to release this palette. So apparently the story goes that Jaclyn kept pushing it off over and over and over again, being wishy-washy, and eventually the product was sitting on the line for so long that Marlena had to scrap the entire deal because she had to get rid of this product, and ultimately ended up losing over $1 million out of this collab that fell through. And I think that put them quite a bit behind. And then COVID hit, and eventually Makeup Geek closed its doors last year, and it's kind of another example of this behavior. And it's really disappointing for me to say because I love Jaclyn Hill. I don't want to believe everything what the internet is saying about her, but these behaviors are it's so disappointing. So what do you think? Do you think it was ethical for her to start a brand called Cozy, knowing that there was another creator who had a brand that was established on the internet? Or maybe she didn't know, but she definitely eventually found out and did nothing, said nothing. What do you think about that? Okay, so we're leaving the internet YouTube talk, and we're going to go back into some celebrity gossip. And this next article I saw today, actually, and it's about the movie The Blind Side. Who remembers that movie? It's got Sandra Bullock in it, and she's like this go-getter mom, this ritzy mom. So basically the story goes is they adopt a boy and they take him out of the foster system, and he excels at football, and he's eventually drafted into the NFL. And the story is about his life, and the real person behind that story, his name is Michael Orr, and he's been in the news a few times. Most recently, he came out and said that he was not actually adopted by this family, and he found out that the papers they had him sign that he believed was adoption paperwork was paperwork to make them conservators so they could profit off of him. And that just completely ruins the whole point and purpose of the movie. It definitely takes all of the feel goods out of that. Ashley Olsen just announced that she gave birth to a baby boy. She kept the pregnancy completely a secret, which I feel like the Olsen twins are really doing this fame thing right. They just completely dipped out of the spotlight. They're living their best life. They have their brand, their fashion brand, The Row, and they just do not care to be famous anymore, which I can respect. And so she announced that she gave birth to a baby boy with her husband. His name is Louis Eisner, and he's a visual artist. I'm not really sure what that is, but congrats to them. I know during COVID, Mary-Kate had the opposite experience in her relationship. She was asking for an emergency divorce from her husband, and I believe the emergency divorce was actually denied because it was COVID and everything was backed up. At the time, she was married to this French banker. I think he's based out of the US, but his name is Oliver Sarkozy, and he was nearly 20 years older than her. So, and he was kind of weird looking too. Speaking of secret pregnancies, Kelly Osbourne also announced that she gave birth, and it's really sad because she basically admitted that she kept it a secret because she was afraid the internet was going to fat shame her, which I think is really sad. I saw pictures of her recently, and she has had a glow up. But I can kind of understand why she would feel that way, because she grew up as a teenager on reality TV in the 2000s. This is like the height of you are like heroin chic or you are fat. This is when people thought Jessica Simpson was fat. Just the media was just chaotic during this time. And I cannot imagine having my awkward teenage years on film repeating to this day on TV. A while ago, I was talking about Alabama Barker. We know how much I love Alabama Barker. I think she is the cutest. She is so gorgeous. I think she's only 16, maybe 17 now, and she's just looks exactly like her mom. She's just bombshell, gorgeous blonde girl, and she wants to have a rap career. Or I think she raps on the side, and then she wants to come out with a makeup brand. She's very talented with makeup. And obviously people are giving her some slack over this rapping that she does. And her mom came out and defended her and called her rap career amazing, which all moms should do. But actually, I have heard a few tracks that she has posted, and she is not bad, I must say. I mean, I don't listen to rap music, but I think that she has the potential to be good. Also, good on her for pursuing something that is definitely out of the norm and something people would not think she would do as a 16-year-old in the limelight. That's got to be really hard. I bet she knew she was going to get a lot of slack from that. She probably gets a lot of hate. And me as a 16-year-old, if I had all of these people on the internet basically telling me all these terrible things to me, about me, I don't know if I'd be able to handle it with such poise and dignity that she does. A while ago, I also mentioned Celine Dion and how she was diagnosed with this rare syndrome called stiff person syndrome, and it just sounds so crazy that it almost feels like it can't be true, but it is horrific. It's basically this syndrome where you get muscle rigidity, spasms, impaired mobility, and chronic pain. You basically are stiff like a statue, and it sounds completely horrifying. And she was supposed to go on tour, but apparently she is not doing well. The most recent article I saw of her said that she couldn't find meds that worked well, and unfortunately she had to cancel her upcoming tour. And she stated, "Unfortunately, the muscle spasms affect every aspect of my daily life, sometimes causing difficulties when I walk and not allowing me to use my vocal cords to sing the way that I used to." Which, that's so sad. I can't even imagine. She has been the queen of singing. She is the ballad song goddess. My Heart Will Go On, Titanic. She is just been the voice of this generation, and I can't imagine how hard that must be for her. Another rapper was also in the news recently, Megan Thee Stallion, and this is for something that happened back in 2020. And I think she was just coming on the scene and becoming big. And I honestly did not hear about this story, but apparently in 2020, during the height of COVID, she did what all of us did, right? Go to a mansion party at Kylie Jenner's house. And anyway, so we all know that when you're rich, the rules don't count. They don't apply to you. But so apparently her boyfriend at the time and her got in a strife outside. I learned that word from my friend. I just think it's great, a strife. So I'm going to use that to describe every single argument ever. It's a strife. This was a little bit more than a strife, though, because he ended up shooting her in the foot, which thank God he didn't shoot her anywhere else. But still, what the fuck? You don't throw out a gun and shoot the person that you're with. That's... Anyway, so I saw an article and... So apparently he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, which as he should be, and he feels no remorse. So, yeah. Okay, this is old news, but I have to mention it, and because I discovered this, I was late to this story, but also I didn't have the podcast at the time, and it made me infuriated. And then I forgot about it and saw it again, and then it made me more infuriated the second time. I forgot how mad I was the first time. I used to love watching the Total Bellas with Nikki and Brie, and it followed them. They were WWE wrestlers, and Brie was dating Daniel Nicholson, a wrestler, and Nikki was dating John Cena, which we know who John Cena is, and they were together 7 years. And I used to hope that I'd run into the Bella twins because they used to live in San Diego for a bit. And one time they were down the street from where I lived at a popular restaurant. And I thought to myself, if only I was there, I would have got to meet them. I just think they're so adorable. But anyway, so Nikki was dating John Cena. They were together for about 7 years. And she loved him. She was obsessed with John Cena. They were so in love, and he never wanted to get married again. So he'd been married previously, and he didn't see himself getting married again, and he didn't want to have kids, and he told her that, and she loved him so much that she was willing to give that all up for him. She almost gave all that up for him. And then when her sister had a baby, she realized how important it was to her. So they ended up breaking up, and she met somebody that gave her everything she wanted in a year. Married, baby, and she is so happy now. Anyway, so the man who said he wanted none of that gets married a year and a half later. So let this be a lesson to you. And this is the best advice that I've ever heard. I can't remember if I've mentioned this before on this podcast, but it warrants being said again, being shouted from the rooftops. Best advice I ever heard is the with you part is always silent, but always implied. So somebody says, I don't want to get married. With you. I don't want to have kids. With you. Because of that person, I promise you, after you break up, 6 months to a year later, will do that exact thing with someone else. Another example was Holly Madison, and this is another extreme example, but Holly Madison and Hugh Hefner. 7 years, he was like, I'm not getting married again. Crystal Hefner was married to him within a year and a half. So I'm just going to end this here on a high note. So the tea was hot this week. It got a little heated, but there were a lot of good celebrity topics because I had some carried over from the week prior because last week had to be dedicated to Era's tour. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for joining me on a little bit unglamorous After Dark version. I'm your host, Erica Renee, and I will see you in next week's episode. Bye, guys.